National Assembly sound check 1 2 1 2 testing 1 2.
Hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
The House Chairperson.
For silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Honorable members, the only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in Cluster 3, Governance. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question on. An adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This is being done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer, and in allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness amongst others has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technical difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all supplementary questions have been answered by the executive, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. The first question has been asked by the Honorable L.A. Schreiber to the Minister of Public Service and Administration. I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The response to the question is that the 2023-24 financial year, 37.4 billion would have been paid. This comprises the cost of translating.
Honorable Minister, will you just hold there, please? Our apologies for that. Honorable Suela, will you just mute your microphone? And if it happens again, we just simply switch off the microphone of the member on the virtual platform. Please proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The 23-24 financial year, an amount of 37.4 billion would be paid as part of the wage agreement. And this comprises the cost of translating the non-perishable cash allowance that was paid to the public servants at a rate of 4.2%, as well as the top-up of 3.3 nominal increase. And for 2024-25, the amount that would be spent would amount to 25.4 billion. And this is made up of projected CPI for the financial year 24-25, estimated at 4.5%. Hence, the total cost is lesser than 23-24. Thank you.
Thank you,
House
Honourable
Chair.
Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Schreiber.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. In its 2019 manifesto, the ANC promised, and I quote, to ensure that government has the capacity, resources, and people to serve citizens effectively, end quote. Over the past 5 years, they have done the exact opposite from what they promised. Last week, we found out that the ANC is planning to increase VAT by 2 percentage points and to cut funding for critical food security programs, policing, and infrastructure investments. They are planning to do this all in the context of the worst cost of living crisis in a generation, rampant crime, and as critical infrastructure such as railways and electricity provision collapses all around us. And we just heard that stage 7 load shedding is on the way. At the very same time that the ANC is punishing the poorest of the poor through budget cuts and higher VAT, they have granted, as we just heard from the Minister, a 37 billion rand salary increase in the public sector. As the Minister told us, funding this increase will require even more cuts to critical frontline services, including education and healthcare. Honourable Minister, my question is simple. How do you sleep at night, knowing that you are increasing VAT and slashing critical services to millions of poor South Africans in order to give a 37 billion rand salary increase to the deployed cadres who have collapsed public service delivery? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
House Chair, in as much as I don't deal with VAT and all that has been raised, but I would want to say that the settlement for negotiations is an agreed settlement with all unions in the public service, and we stick by what we have agreed with them in terms of the good management practices in the first place, but also our resolve in terms of the Labour Relations Act to conduct a space of labor relations environment that is stable, that is not oppressive to employees, and therefore every other thing that the honourable member has raised, he himself is saying he had it. I don't know about it. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Ngweba.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honourable Minister, what are the implications of reducing the public sector wage in relation to the state's capacity and capability, recognizing the need for the state to build internal capabilities to provide various services in light of insourcing essential service delivery functions? I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
Honourable House Chair, thank you, Honourable Member. Let me first indicate that provision of services to the public requires a stable environment, as I have earlier indicated. And that stable environment requires us to ensure that we create it in the first place. But secondly, if, and I want to emphasize the word if there has to be any cuts, those cuts would have to have been looked closely upon to ensure that services to the people are not compromised. Because we wouldn't be paying public servants good salaries for them to cut the services that they should provide to the people. We need to strike a good balance between ensuring a good public service space that is able to ensure that there are good public services to the public. And therefore that balancing line requires the two departments and either involved departments to come together and look at the measures that would have to be taken. And I'm at the line if. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Minister, is this hefty wage bill that we have in the country, in the public sector, sustainable in the long run? But more importantly, Minister, the Public Service Commission has raised concern about the quality of officials that we are employees in the public sector. Will you consider recommending to your colleagues that we have an independent body responsible for employment or appointment of all officials in the public sector in the country? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, in as much as that's 3 questions. And therefore, if I don't answer all, the member will understand. Firstly, the so-called heavy, I don't know what is it measured against. The heavy or the big budget for payment of salaries to public servants. And therefore, it becomes difficult to say it's heavy or not heavy when you don't know what it is measured or compared against. But to take the question forward in terms of the forward movement, the state, in fact, government is busy having engaged with the NSG, which is the National School of Government, in working measures to capacitate public servants where they do not have capacity. But remember, honorable members, that before any appointment is made, there would have been an advert that specifies what criteria of a person is needed to fulfill a particular responsibility. And therefore, again, we need not be very blanket around the capacity, because there would be, yes, those few that would lack capacity who would then be attended to through the NSG programs, and there would be those who know what they do. And in actual fact, looking at the 1.2 public servants serving 60 million almost people, for me, we have a public service that is hard at work. Thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Denner.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Minister, compensation of employees has been one of government's fastest growing expenditure items in the recent years, comprising roughly a third of total consolidated expenditure. One could say that government has created a monster called the public sector wage bill, and that very monster is now rearing up to bite its master. And those who are going to pay the price for that are the citizens and especially the taxpayers of this country. So, Minister, what I would like to know is the Finance Minister in his budget speech announced a 3.3% annual wage increase over the medium term. Yet recently government had to concede at 7.5%. And the honourable member before me mentioned that this is not sustainable, and that's exactly that. It is not sustainable. So what measures, if any, does your department have planned to mitigate possible future industrial action, such as public sector wage strikes that we've seen in the past, that has turned violent and that has even led to the loss of life of citizens of this country? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. Let me upfront indicate that to say we have created a monster in the salary negotiations in this country becomes a bit of an insult, because one, the absence of this that I had earlier said, we are throwing statements without saying as compared to, which would have been an international or a national or regional norm. It becomes insultive for me to say we are in a space where we've created a monster with the fastest growing salaries, because those salaries are negotiated openly, fairly, in a transparent way, and are settled based on what the state can afford at a particular time, looking at a number of factors that contribute, the CPI and all else, the improvement of quality of life for any salary negotiations. And therefore, to come around and say it's a monster, it's to create, again, unnecessary animosity against the public, pitting the public service against the government. And I don't think responsible leaders would handle matters of national importance in that manner. We need to ensure that our decisions, our comments, and everything we do is more about building a South Africa that is prosperous for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, question number 486 has been asked by the Honourable Mutapu to the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The Honourable Minister will reply on the virtual platform. Honourable Minister.
Good afternoon, and okay, I forgot to put on. Good afternoon, and thank you very much, House Chair, for this opportunity. Our Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has commenced with the research to produce a 30-year review report, which will be presented as government's integrated evaluation of South Africa's progress since transitioning into democracy and governance from 1994. The approach of the review includes analysis of the social, economic, and political trends and structural changes to understand the impact of government policies and programs in improving the quality of life of citizens. We want to review and encourage engagement among citizens as well, so that all our social partners can then now be part of this 30-year review, so that when we talk about democracy, all of us can be talking about it from ownership. This research for the review is based on the objectives of the National Development Plan and our Vision 2030, and of course, all the other medium-term strategic framework that took place within that 30-year period. This is made to make sure that the review should be able to address the existing long-term plan for the country and also enable a reflection on the priorities of the current administration. We envisage that we should be done with the review by December 2023, yes.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. May I also request you that when you do the follow-up questions that you switch on your video feed, please. It will make things a bit easier for us here in the chamber. And if there should be a problem with your connectivity, I will indicate to you that you may switch it off. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mutapu.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, colleagues. Many have argued, Honourable Chairperson, that the democratic government transformation without recognizing the impact of colonialism and apartheid. What reflections, Honourable Minister, can the Minister make in relation to this assertion? I thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the follow-up. I hope that you can see me because I did switch on.
Honourable Minister, we still cannot see your video feed.
Okay, because I've switched it on. So I'm not sure why am I not.
Okay, we will, Honourable Minister, please proceed. We will look from outside if there could be a problem. But please continue.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you very much for the follow-up question. I do not believe that it is a correct assertion to say that the democratic government has not advanced fundamental transformation without recognizing the impact of colonialism and apartheid, the question that has just been asked. In my view, I do believe that this democratic government that has started in 1994 has actually done a lot as it relates to transformation. Before, we didn't even talk about the issue of...
Honorable member.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, honorable member.
Again,
Order, honorable members.
No, Chair, ngokukhulu ukuhlonipha. Asikwazi ukuthi sikhulume umuntu singamboni ubani kuphi kanjani ngiyabonga.
Please take your seat, honorable member. I've made a ruling on this matter. Order. I've made a ruling on the matter. Please proceed, honorable minister.
All right. All right.
Order,
it looks like it
honorable
was from
members.
my side. They've just showed me what I was doing wrong. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm sorry for that. I do believe that it is not true to suggest that indeed this democratic government has not advanced fundamental transformation. There are significant changes that have taken place over the 3 decades of democracy, which are reflected in the political, economic, and human development indicators of our country. For example, when we introduced in 1994 the RDP white paper, it correctly anticipated a long and arduous process required to undo the deep-rooted legacy of apartheid. And currently, when we talk about South Africa, it is rated amongst the top 15 countries globally respected for gender equality and impressive women representation in public institutions. So when we talk about the issue of representation and transformation, we cannot say that truthfully so and say that this current democratic government hasn't been able to do anything. We have been able to increase indeed the number of people that are participating in the economy, and that we have really been able to see that there's a number of women and also a number of Black people and Africans in particular and colored people that have got more access than before. So definitely transformation has taken place. So I do not agree that there is any way that we would truthfully say that this democratic dispensation hasn't brought any transformation. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, honorable minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. In its 2019 election manifesto, the ANC committed itself to the goal of a capable state that operates through cooperative governance and partnership building, but this government has not achieved that. So if we're talking about reviewing things after 30 years of democracy, it is glaringly clear that decentralization of governance and delivery must be a key pillar of the much needed reform and transformation to promote recovery, growth, and development, especially where competent provincial and local governments can assist to address national government's failures and constraints. Why then, Minister, has the presidency dismissed the partnership call by Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis for a joint working committee on rail management devolution so that the city can pick up the slack of Metro Rail in order to directly and better serve rail commuters?
Honorable Khadebe.
Chairperson, according to Rule 142.7, according to Rule 142.7, the follow-up question, the questions must be asked, must come straight from the original question or from the follow-up of the minister. This looks like a new question altogether. Thank you.
Yeah, you see, the issue is that the original question is framed very broadly. So I will allow the minister to respond as far as she can. However, when it gets to the detail of it, it surely resorts under a different ministry. That's the Minister of Transport. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. And indeed, you are right to say that this would have been better asked to the Minister of Transport. However, as it relates to cooperative governance, I do believe that we believe that if we are able to ensure that whatever it is that we are doing, from planning to implementation, it should be done in an integrated way. We do believe that that would then now be able to allow us to see more effective solutions for whatever it is that we are putting in place. For example, the Presidential Coordinating Council do consist of course, ministers, the president, and premiers. And at some point, we used to even have city mayors, yes, city mayors, we can call them that. So we don't believe that anything that seeks to say that we cannot promote integrated way of doing things will definitely be able to assist this country. So integrated implementation and planning of all the things that we do, whether you're a municipality or your government, has to be promoted if we really have to promote the issue of cooperative governance. That is my view on the issue. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Komani.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, let us remind you, when you say people have benefited, are participating in the economy, those are those that are closer to the ruling party. Then, Minister, the reality of the past 25 years is that the rate of joblessness has ballooned, crime is beyond level at which police can properly control, poverty has intensified among the Black people, particularly Black women. We do not have a reliable supply of energy. Attempts of land reform have all failed. Would your review of the failures of the past 29 years include propositions for radical changes in the constitutional and legislative framework intended to bring about tangible change in the lives of the people? Secondly, what mechanisms does the government have to deal with grossly incompetent ministers such as Mr. Godan and Mr. Cele? Thank you very much.
Honourable members, let me just remind you that a follow-up question is restricted to one question only. And the Minister is under no obligation to answer all those questions. The Minister will thus decide what she wants to respond to. The Honourable Minister.
I choose not to answer that question. Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you. The last question is to be asked by the Honourable Sukas.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, our country experienced a wave of social unrest in July of 2021, with over 350 people killed. We are currently facing serious social and environmental challenges that contribute to the negative outlook of many South Africans. Their lived experience is the escalation of crime, high unemployment, and systemic dysfunction at all levels of government. How does the Minister plan to embrace this in her program to review 30 years of democracy? The lack of transformation in addressing the root causes of ineffective security institutions, poor oversight and consequence management, and weak state institutions that have little capacity for execution and the implementation of government plans. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. The department has been working hard on ensuring that the bill that would deal with all these issues that have been raised here will actually be passed in Parliament very soon. And we are planning to ensure that we deal with the issue of the institutionalization of planning, because we have realized that lack of institutionalized planning does become a problem. We can't have one department out there that deals with planning, monitoring, and evaluation, but we need to build a machinery in all departments, in all spheres of government, that would then now work with this department of ours to ensure that institutionalization of planning does take place, so that when we monitor and evaluate progress and performance of different institutions, we do it coming from one point, which would then now be guided by the NDP, of course. And we also do believe that immediately when we finish doing that, we then now need to look at processes of repurposing our department as well, so that we don't only solely exist for performance monitoring and evaluation, but we also are given an opportunity, or we do get a platform where we can deal directly with some of the things that are in the NDP, especially as it relates to developmental issues, not only on the countryside or on domestic level, but also tapping into the international developmental agencies that should then now be able to assist us to deal with it, the developmental agenda that we have of our country, which will definitely be able to deal with the issues that the Honorable Minister have asked. So once the bill is been passed, we do believe that we will be having what it takes to be able to institutionalize planning, but we will also be given an opportunity to be able to take measures for non-performance as it relates to those planning that we would have made, especially the long-term planning and the medium-term planning as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, I just want to remind you that the follow-up questions must be posed in a manner that is in line with the responsibility of the Minister. For instance, the Minister indicated on a follow-up question she's not going to reply to it, and allow that for her not to reply to it because it's not her competency to decide on the firing and deployment of other ministers. She herself is appointed by the President, so that responsibility of appointment to Cabinet or being relieved from Cabinet duties doesn't reside with this Minister. The next question, 494, has been asked by the Honourable Sheikh Imam. The Honourable Sheikh Imam's question has been posed to the Honourable Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, and I've been informed the Deputy Minister will take charge of those questions. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. According to Section 154 of the Constitution, the national and provincial governments by legislative and other means must support and strengthen the capacity of municipalities to manage their own affairs, to exercise their powers and to perform their functions. The Department of Cooperative Governance, together with other government departments and entities, continue to support municipalities, including eThekwini. The following are some of the measures put in place and continuing to be implemented in eThekwini. A political and technical coordinating committee has been established, set up or led by the Ministries of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, together with Water and Sanitation, to coordinate the planning, monitoring, and reporting of key implementation measures to address the state of water and sanitation infrastructure in the municipality. The action plan developed includes, amongst others, the National Treasury through the City Support Program is building institutional capacity to sustain improvement on water and sanitation management. The Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent deploys resources in areas of scoping, specification development, in support of water and sanitation supply chain management processes, which was identified as a gap. MISA also conducted a capacity assessment within the water and sanitation unit of the municipality. Department of Water and Sanitation have committed to, with regards to wastewater treatment works, focus on operation and maintenance and provide the necessary support thereto. There's also a pending MOU between Umgeni Water and eThekwini Municipality, in which Umgeni Water will undertake certain water and sanitation infrastructure work on behalf of the municipality. On the side of the municipality, they've committed doing their part in the implementation of the programs as approved, in line with the medium-term revenue and expenditure framework, providing services and prudently managing the municipal purse. Lastly, to ensure that the municipality recovers money owed for rates and services provided, the city continues to enforce credit control measures as required by the credit control and debt management policy. The executive mayor of the municipality has also engaged with the Westville, Umhlanga, and Musgrave ratepayer associations, which discussions seem to be yielding positive results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. I now recognize the Honourable Sheikh Imam Who will ask the first supplementary question?
Thank you, House
Honorable
Chair.
Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House. Thank you, House Chair. Deputy Minister, even the Section 154 intervention has now picked up a snag, where councillors are not even willing and prepared to meet with the MEC. More importantly, eThekwini sits with an 8 billion rand debt, 54% water loss. I am told their cash reserves are depleted. So the problem is bigger than just water and sanitation. And more importantly, on the Deputy Minister, those that even pay are now saying they're not going to pay and they are withholding their payment. What further measures can your department put in place to ensure there's accountability? Because this is going on for many years and very little or no progress has been made. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. As with all other municipalities, we're monitoring the situation in eThekwini continuously. In fact, we've recently agreed with the Minister to undertake a visit to the municipality, and this has also been agreed with the Executive Mayor of the municipality. To the extent that the challenges require resolution, the processes that I've indicated earlier are dealing directly with the issues that have been raised to ensure that we're able to address the issues. If it is that additional measures are required, we would be able to institute those measures, but at this point are confident that the current measures in place will yield the necessary results. Thank you very much.
The next supplementary question is to be asked by the Honorable Mpumza.
Thank you, House Chair. Deputy Minister, the user pay principle is not understood coherently by the public. What are the implications of not upholding the user pay principle for the government revenue and service delivery? Thank you, House Chair.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think it is important to appreciate the way in which our municipalities generate revenue, in particular for services such as water, sanitation, and electricity that are based on the ability to recover revenue from those services provided, with the understanding that municipalities buy water from bulk water service providers and provide that water to communities, and therefore need to be able to recover revenue in that regard. The same applies to electricity. Municipalities generate revenue on the basis of sales of electricity to communities, but this is not electricity that they necessarily generate themselves. By far, the municipalities procure these from, in certain instances, independent power producers, but in most instances from ESCOM. And therefore, municipalities have an obligation to meet their requirements in terms of the service providers that they have. Therefore, it is important that our residents understand that to sustain our municipalities and their ability to deliver services is dependent on them recovering revenue and being able to deploy this accordingly to ensure repairs and maintenance, to ensure that they are able to buy and sell services, but also deal with other services that require cross-subsidization. Thank you very much.
The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Spies.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, the eThekwini Metro Municipality was supposed to be a beacon of effective governance. Instead, it is a hotbed of political turmoil, with no party holding a majority, causing chaos and inaction. While the ANC manifesto pledged fiscal responsibility, we see the municipality squandering 11 million rand on parties while their financial situation crumbles. Rates increase, yet services stagnate, leaving residents in the dark. The ANC vowed to improve service delivery, but eThekwini faces a dire service delivery crisis. The invocation of Section 154 demonstrates the extent of this failure, as the residents withhold payment in process. Minister, in the light of the glaring discrepancies between your manifesto promises and the current situation, has your department assessed the impact of the rates boycott? And have you considered increasing your intervention before the next inflation and pricing squeeze to address these failures?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Well, firstly, I think it is important, Honorable Chairperson, to note that in fact, there is a process currently underway in the country where a particular political party seems to be behind particular rates boycotts. And these have been witnessed in, amongst others, at eThekwini, in Knysna, and other municipalities. And this is tantamount to a silent coup by the Democratic Alliance, because in fact, it is designed in such a way that they undermine the functionality of the municipality so that they are able to facilitate a handover of power, if not take over of power. And I think it's something that we're very conscious of in relation to how, in the first instance, the synchronization between these rates boycotts and the engagement with the Democratic Alliance. And I do think that there is a duty on yourselves as a political party to ensure that you do not encourage these sort of situations. That notwithstanding, and that having been said, it is important to state that we have had a direct engagement with the executive mayor of eThekwini municipality, who has indicated in my response, and I indicated that they've engaged with those communities that are engaged in at least a race boycott or an attempt to that. And that this seems to be yielding results, not uniformly because they've engaged 3 ratepayers associations. 2 of them have been fairly positive in their response, and the other, he indicated they'll be having follow-up discussions. So we are quite happy that that is underway. However, the executive mayor also said to us, remember, it's also important to note that we have spent, as this municipality, the bulk of our capital grants as subsidized by national government. So as you continue to measure us, also measure us on performance. Also measure us on the basis on which you grant money to the municipality and it performs in that regard. And that story can't be said about every metro.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Your time is now expired.
The story could be different.
Thank you. Honorable members, as you may be aware, the memorial service for the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is currently taking place, and as such, the IFP did not ask a question. There is thus an opportunity for another supplementary question to be asked by any political party. None. We proceed to the next question. Question number 492 has been asked by the Honorable Radebe to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. The impact of the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent on infrastructure development in local government in the last 10 years of its existence include the following. MISA has implemented infrastructure projects valued at approximately 208 million rands, benefiting 20,000 households in terms of access to basic services. These projects include the construction of boreholes, upgrading water and wastewater treatment facilities, refurbishing water springs and establishing water storage tanks, pipelines, and roads projects. One of MISA's key successes relates to the rehabilitation of the Somerset High, Hill, and New Streets in Makanda municipality in the Eastern Cape, which resulted in the resuscitation of the town's central business district. MISA's flagship programs implemented during the first 10 years of the entity's existence include, amongst others, institutionalization of labor-intensive construction methods in infrastructure development projects in 25 MIC receiving municipalities, creating 19,324 jobs. The Eastern Seaboard Development is a program that MISA continues to drive to create a modern African coastal smart city straddling both KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. MISA has invested 5.5 million in support and capacitation of 14 municipalities on their alignment to social labor plans and municipal integrated development plans, therefore fostering a relationship between investments by the mining industry and the municipalities. The institution has also focused on municipal solid waste management program, and this is one of the presidential employment scheme projects with funding of 284 million and implemented in 41 municipalities, generating in excess of 15,000 work opportunities for local participants. MISA supports municipalities to implement infrastructure projects through project lifecycle, including all infrastructure grants such as MIG, the Water Services Infrastructure Grant, and the Integrated National Electricity Program Grant, contributing to the reduction of backlogs. Throughout the past decade, MISA provided over 6,000 learning opportunities to the youths and provided training to municipal officials at an average of 600 trainees per annum. These capacity development initiatives were undertaken in partnership with the SITA, local government, and the TVET colleges throughout the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your response. And without me sounding as if I'm applauding the fish for swimming, your response indeed signified a decade of excellence by the side of MISA. Now, Minister, we all know that there are multiple of municipalities in the country that are facing challenges. What are the plans in place to increase MISA's capacity in order for MISA to intervene accordingly in those municipalities? I thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Indeed, MISA's responsibilities and mandate continue to increase as there is an increased expectation as to what they can or can't do. One of the things that we've done at MISA is to create a design office, which is currently being piloted so that it is able to provide design capacity to municipalities and ensure that they are able to go through a procurement process. We are also engaging, and in fact, the reason the minister is not here is because she's in the Northern Cape as part of the departmental roadshows that we're undertaking for the implementation, amongst others, of Schedule 6B in identified municipalities that do not have capacity, so that we're able to convert conditional grants that are direct grants into indirect grants and ensure that these are spent in municipalities that do not have the capacity. And this capacity is also supplemented through our partnership with the DPSA and other partners to ensure that we build the necessary capability. Of course, the resources are not enough, but through the appropriate partnerships that we're evolving, including with the private sector, we believe MISA's ability to implement and increase their capability is yielding the necessary results and will improve going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable I.M. Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. DM, although that MISA is duplicating the work that the municipality are actually supposed to do by itself already and should have a department within the municipality that's doing it. MISA got involved with this Botla municipality in 2020 already, and they developed an infrastructure and development plan. But those recommendations were sent through to council. Council adopted it. So in 2021, it should be part of the IDM, or IDP, yes. And then must be included in the budget and being implemented. Yet, the Botlas still today do not have water. When will the Botla have water? Through the recommendations of MISA that's been taken, or actions being taken in terms of those recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I think if we look at MISA, we should look at it as an institution that seeks to implement Section 154 of the Constitution and provide support to municipalities to undertake their own executive obligations. So it is a support agent created to provide the necessary support and not take over from municipalities the role that they are supposed to perform. That notwithstanding, as indicated earlier, we have identified, and it's always amongst those municipalities that have had continuous underspending of grants, including the municipal infrastructure grant, and have agreed that these grants are converted into indirect grants, and MISA is able to implement on their behalf so that communities do not suffer because of the municipality's institutional capability problems. We ensure that the communities receive the services and we implement on behalf of the municipality through the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent. So we are looking at performing more than just a support function, but in certain instances, ensuring that services are delivered to communities that might not have this access because of their own limitations. Thank you very much.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Nkalipi. I understand that the whip will take charge of that question.
I am standing in for Mkalipi, Chair of Chairs.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Despite this agency having existed for this long, it cannot be said that it has contributed in any meaningful way in government of municipalities. A great majority of our municipalities are still dysfunctional and are havens for corruption and money laundering. What is the major stumbling block towards effectively functioning municipalities in the country? Why has the government failed to make municipalities models of service delivery over the past 2 decades? Thank you very much.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable Chairperson, allow me to repeat. The Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent was established to provide support to municipalities with regards to execution of infrastructure-related projects. This includes capital development, repairs and maintenance, and rehabilitation of aging infrastructure. And MISA provides that support to the municipality. It does not take over the functions of the municipality. MISA does not become a municipality when it walks in. It provides support to the municipality, and it is against that we should measure this agency. Thank you very much.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Deputy Minister, there is not a single water tap in Matuba near Richards Bay, and probably in every second village in South Africa, there are no taps inside the houses. And the infrastructure grant should be used for this. And if it is given to MISA, the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency, and not directly, in this case, to the municipality of Matuba, will MISA then be able to speed up the process, and how will it do for this village of Matuba and other villages to get their first steps after 30 years of democracy?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Municipalities continue to receive a variety of grants that I've referred to earlier, and this includes from COCTA, the Municipal Infrastructure Grant, from the Department of Water and Sanitation, the Water Services Infrastructure Grant, and the Regional Bulk Infrastructure Grants. And therefore, we're going to measure the sort of support that are provided to municipalities based on our understanding of the different roles of these grants. Now, talk water and sanitation in particular, because the Municipal Infrastructure Grant, whilst being a conditional grant, is a flexible grant to the extent that it makes provision for the municipality to make its own decisions as to where to deploy these grants. And because water has been one of the most critical issues that need attention over and above those grants that come from water and sanitation, the bulk of MIC, as per the decisions of municipalities, have been directed towards water and sanitation. In excess of 40% of the overall grant has gone to these services. And this is intended to ensure that these measures are implemented and communities are able to benefit from these initiatives. As indicated through the intervention of converting into indirect grants, we would be able to increase this. And a similar decision has been undertaken by the Department of Water and Sanitation, including implementing mechanism through their legislation to intervene in terms of access to water and sanitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable members, question number 456 has been asked by the Honorable G. Opperman to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you once again, Chairperson. The Department of Cooperative Governance is in the process of developing proposals to amend the Municipal Structures Act to guide coalition arrangements in municipalities where there's been no outright majority for a single party. These proposals will be finalized within the context of our constitutional architecture and will be implemented after following the required legislative and parliamentary processes. The department has also participated and taken note of the discussions that took place during the National Dialogue on Coalition Governments that was hosted by the Office of the Deputy President, as well as during the recently held SALGA National Members Assembly. The outcomes of these engagements will be used to strengthen the current proposals as this matter is being finalized. Some of the proposals to be considered in the legislation relate to encouraging amendments to Section 12 or establishment notices of municipalities to change from a mayoral executive system to a collective executive system to create an environment of political inclusivity. The development and publication of coalition agreements by those who enter into these agreements, also enabling the party with the highest number of seats to be given preference to form a coalition within clear time frames. We intend finalizing consultation with all stakeholders in this regard before the end of the current financial year, whereafter the bill will be presented to the relevant cabinet committee, to cabinet, and then of course the necessary legislative processes will be undertaken. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. I now recognize the Honorable Opperman, who will take the first supplementary question.
Thank you, DM, for answering part of my question. I want to know, while you are still drafting the legislation now, and recently, as you mentioned, hosted an entire national dialogue on coalition governments, we only have to read the newspapers to realize that the ANC-EFF coalitions are falling apart and the cracks are showing. Finally, the ANC also have a taste of exactly why the EFF are terrible coalition partners and why power sharing agreements with them don't.
This is just out of order now.
I'd like to know whether the minister have any plans in place to address factionism while you are still drafting legislation. Have you any plans in place to address the greed and the frivolous motions of no confidence in coalition governments that negatively impacts on service delivery and causes instability in local government? If not, what is the position in this regard? If yes, what are the relevant details?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable members, can we just quiet down? There's only one Deputy Minister for Cooperative Governance. Maybe your chance will come, but not at the moment.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I certainly have observed a tendency by the Democratic Alliance to create the EFF as a scarecrow as soon as they dump you as a partner. But as long as they are prepared to enter into a relationship with you, it is okay to talk to them. I think it's unfortunate. I think all parties are engaging. There have been complications in coalition agreements throughout the country. The first set of coalition complications we at least witnessed were those as led by the Democratic Alliance. And in fact, your own coalition partners have accused you of arrogance, of being pompous, of being unreasonable, and a whole range of coalition agreements have been impacted by that. So to be selective in your presentation is quite unfortunate because it is a failure to accept the reality of what has happened on the ground. Now, the DA has a tendency, and those of us with small voices struggle, that when you tell the facts, they shout, so that they scream you down. I will continue to make my point because these are factual points in terms of your own conduct on the ground. Can we intervene in an environment where parties are disagreeing as government? It is difficult until legislation has been changed. Where we require intervention, we use current legislative means. We can't create a new regime to control parties that are in a coalition. These are agreements between parties and need to be governed as such. So if you want me to answer as a member of the ANC National Coalition Task Team, I can respond, but I don't think that's my mandate today. Thank you very much.
The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Nsamango.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Deputy Minister,
How far is the department in developing policies, regulations, or legislations to insulate service delivery from the impact of high concerns and instability?
Order. Please disconnect that honorable member immediately. I don't know what she's trying to say, but just disconnect her. Please proceed, honorable member.
DM, I was saying, how far is the department in developing policies, regulations, or legislation to insulate service delivery from the impact of hung cancers and instability of coalition governments? And what type of interventions can insulate service provisions? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much again, House Chair. And there are two parts to the question and very interrelated. The first is that current legislation does provide for a separation of functions and delineation of responsibilities between the political and the administrative components. Therefore, it shouldn't necessarily be that, in fact, the administration is impacted through political interference. And the Municipal Councillor's Code of Conduct, amongst others, governs that. And it is important that our provinces undertake their responsibility of monitoring compliance to the Code of Conduct of councillors and, in fact, interference in the administration, because there is a delineation of responsibility between the two. The second part of the question is, how far are we with legislation? We were ready with the draft, but as soon as the Deputy President announced that he's convening a dialogue on coalitions, we decided not to go through with the draft. So we accommodated the outcomes of that in relation to municipal governance and also incorporating the outcomes of the SALGA National Members Assembly. So we should be able to incorporate all those into the draft and should be able to go through the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Heron.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Minister. Minister, there's broad consensus, or Deputy Minister, there's broad consensus that some interventions are required to stabilize coalitions. We would submit that these interventions should be systemic and structural and not venture into the democratic space by reducing the constitutionally protected right to multi-party democracy. At the National Dialogue, the Deputy Minister announced that COGTA had started drafting legislation, which included a threshold as one of the measures. This seemed to preempt the National Dialogue, as well as the work of the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel that the Minister of Home Affairs needs to appoint. So how will this draft legislation be aligned with the work of the consultation panel and the outcomes of the National Dialogue? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
I should say, thank you very much once again, Honorable Chairperson. I should say that when we announced at the National Dialogue that the legislative process with regards to the amendment of the Municipal Structures Act has started, it was not as an intention to undermine the outcomes of the dialogue. What we're saying to the dialogue is we have a draft. We'd already started working on the draft. The Deputy President convened the dialogue and we decided to hold back on submitting that so that you're able to incorporate all the comments that have been submitted. We currently are taking into account all the submissions and comments, and we'll use that as a basis of updating the draft that we have before we take it through the process. Is it intended to undermine the outcomes of a democratic process? It is not. All it is saying is that, like currently there is a threshold, there's no democracy that doesn't have a threshold. There is a threshold that says to qualify to be in parliament, you require a minimum number of votes. And that is a threshold. So not every party that participates in the elections gets to be in parliament, even if they receive below the threshold. And all we're saying is that this should also be applicable to the establishment of the executives. But that's a discussion. We'll put it to the public, we'll put it to parliament, and everybody will be able to make their submission before legislation is finalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Schreiber and the Honorable Hadebe, it seems to me you have some answers to the coalition issue. But will you please do that outside? The Deputy Minister was busy responding to the question. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. Factionalism is not only in political structures, but sometimes in administration as well. And you said there's a separation. Sometimes there's not, especially in coalition governments. The new Systems Act allude to the fact that staff members may not hold political office anymore. What have your office done, or what has the department done to ensure that that happens after that year period is already over now? So what have you done to ensure that there's no political staff, or can I say no staff in any political structure as from this point on forward? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Except that the Honorable Groenewald moved us from a Structures Act conversation to a Systems Act conversation. So I'm sure Honorable Groenewald would appreciate if I say, let us engage with that when we get to the committee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's essentially a new question, Honorable Deputy Minister, you're correct. We will move on to the next question. And it is question number 466 that has been asked by the Honorable Mkalipi to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much again, House Chair. Any intervention that may be made by the Minister must be consistent with the letter and spirit of the law in order to ensure that municipalities are not unduly exposed to unfunded mandates by any actions of the Minister. In this regard, through Section 104 of the Municipal Systems Act, or rather Section 104 of the Act permits the Minister to issue regulations or guidelines regarding the development and implementation of indigent policies. The Act also requires that when making regulations or issuing guidelines, the Minister must take into account the capacity of municipalities to comply with those matters. The plight of indigents, be they pensioners or non-pensioners, must be ameliorated. The implementation of the Free Basic Services Program, which is funded through the local government equitable share, supplements the revenue raised by municipalities and is meant to assist municipalities with the provision of basic services at minimum service levels as stipulated in the National Framework on Indigent Policies. The elements of the framework include the provision of free basic water of 25 liters per person per day or 6 kiloliters per household per month. It also provides for various targeting methods or approaches that can be used by municipalities to identify indigent households, which includes means testing that takes into account the household income threshold, and also using minimum collective monthly household income equivalent to or less than 2 old age state pension grants as a guide for identifying indigents. It should be noted that the implementation of the minimal service levels varies from one municipality to another, depending on their economic capacity to implement such. The majority of the local municipalities provide free basic services using the minimum service levels stipulated in the framework, while most of the metropolitan municipalities provide free basic services using the service levels above the set minimum. It should further be noted that beneficiaries, be they pensioners or not, are liable to pay for access to basic services that exceeds the services outlined in the indigent policies of the respective municipalities. Therefore, the pensioners that will be supported in terms of their water bills are those that meet the minimum requirements in terms of the qualifying criteria used, and secondly, the consumption levels that are within the service levels set out in the indigent policies of the respective municipalities. Having stated the above, it is worth noting that municipalities make their own decisions in this regard, and we encourage pensioners to approach their municipalities to participate in the varied programs as provided by municipal indigent policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Who will take the supplementary question?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I did hear your response. However, we ask this question because we know for a fact that eThekwini municipality is disconnecting water because elderly people are unable to pay such. There is Mr. Ndlovu, who came to us with a water bill of 300,000 rand. Are you intending to standardize the way municipalities relate to the elderly and indigent households across the country? I did hear your response on the earlier question, but we want to ask you, will you standardize? Because as you were saying, each municipality have its own rules, so will you standardize this indigenous?
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Well, I can say that we have standardized based on the minimum criteria. So there's a minimum level of basic services that we have created a framework around which indigency policies are implemented. So that is the minimum standard. So if you think about a standardization, there's a minimum standard. There are municipalities, particularly larger municipalities, metropolitan municipalities, etc., that make additional decisions to the implementation of the minimum indigency policies. And this is at the discretion of the municipality based on their capability to do that. So in essence, I'm saying there is a minimum standard that has been created for municipalities. Now, it's very important to also remember that ultimately municipalities must be able to generate revenue based on the level of consumption in the household. In most instances, particularly poorer households, they are able to use this minimum basic service provision to be able to meet their basic requirements in the household. It becomes more difficult when people have lived in a particular area and are used to consuming at a particular level. And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Ndlovu is in that situation. I'm saying if people are at that particular level, when income reduces, how does the municipality intervene? But that has to be governed by the municipality's rates policy, but also it has to be governed by the necessary indigency policies. And I can bear witness to municipalities that have made provision for that, but it's not on the basis of them not complying to a minimum standard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. I now recognize the Honourable Krasa.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Deputy Minister, what is the rate of underspending of indigent grants and what interventions are in place to increase access for the poor and pensioners? Thank you.
Honourable Deputy Minister.
Excuse me. Thank you once again, Chairperson. It's very difficult to measure overall indigency deployment and underspending. Also because this is based on, amongst others, some municipalities implement on the basis of application. Some of them have a universal coverage. So just to make it simple, in certain instances, members of the community are required to apply to be able to receive services. And they say, well, based on this level of income, we would be able to subsidize you to this level. And that's a decision that's made by the municipalities. In certain instances, a municipality says, universal access to water, free basic water, shall be applicable to everybody in this municipality. So everybody gets their free 6 kiloliters of water, and then you pay from consuming more than that. So in those instances, you would say it's a uniform application. So for example, when I still worked in the city of Johannesburg, we implemented universal access. So it would have meant that literally everybody has access to free basic water. It is what they consume above that is being charged on a step tariff. So it's very difficult to give a uniform answer to that. But there's a particular caveat to this issue that's important to consider, which is that we sent back 3.4 billion of the equitable share, which is supposed to cover free basic services from municipalities to National Treasury. And that wasn't as a result of municipalities refusing to spend the money, but non-compliance to capital grants. And we're trying to resolve that problem so that those communities are not affected by sending back money to National Treasury intended for the indigent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, we measure every year the number of households connected to water services, sanitation services, and who receive electricity connections. And some of our governments even brag about those numbers. But a connection is really useless if the household is unable to afford that service. How can a city like the city of Cape Town receive 4 billion rand from the local government equitable share, but then only allocate 182 million rand for free basic electricity, which equals 25 kilowatt hours per month? Should the department not be implementing conditions for the local government equitable share to enforce the minimum standard and secure reasonable access to water and electricity for poor and indigent households?
Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. The equitable share is not a conditional grant, and it is not intended to be a conditional grant, particularly because municipalities, excuse me, should be able to make their own decisions like the other two spheres of government of where to deploy their equitable share. We do, however, provide a framework with regards to free basic services, because it's important for our municipalities to remember that even though it is not a conditional grant, it is measured on the basis of households' access to water, sanitation, and electricity. So if you don't factor that into how you design your policies, you're disadvantaging the community. At this point, it is not a compulsory mechanism. It is a framework that we've created. I would share the concern that in certain instances, there are municipalities that have made decisions to the detriment and at the expense of poorer households. But it is not intended that the equitable share on its own would solve that problem, because it is not a conditional grant. Thank you very much.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Smaller.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Deputy Minister, your 2019 ANC manifesto theme was "Let's grow South Africa together and provide comprehensive social security." Single older people earning not more than 86,280 rand qualifies for grant assistance. Food prices were up 14.4%, the highest rate of food inflation since March 2009. The Constitution obligates government to maintain and promote the status, well-being, and security of elderly persons. The City of Cape Town has proven that it cares for its citizens and has introduced a rates rebate system for pensioners earning between 4,500 and 17,500, which may qualify them for between 10 and 100% rates rebate, clearly demonstrating the willingness to ease the cost of living and protect the most vulnerable. Will the Minister consider promulgating different scales of income groups for the elderly, support those pensioners, income earners between 3,500 and 17,500 rand per month? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. It is interesting that the Democratic Alliance today asks us to introduce minimum standards for deployment of equitable share. Because in fact, that's what you are proposing. Because you are saying, will we do that? Firstly, I will say to you that on the basis of the principles of subsidiarity in our Constitution, we do believe that it is important that local government exercise its executive obligations on their own accord. It's the first important principle. The second is there must be a minimum threshold to deploy resources to municipalities. It's a very important principle to take into account. The third is that we do have to have a minimum threshold, and it is covered in the overall framework that we provide. Should we use benchmarks as a basis of providing a minimum threshold? If you use Cape Town as the example, I will say to you that Cape Town is not the highest threshold. If you'd want other thresholds that are more beneficial to communities, you can look throughout the country and you'd find many of those. So to suggest that in fact Cape Town is the most progressive in terms of indigency policy and bias to the poor, that certainly is not true. But the principle is, do we then intervene and say to Cape Town, you are providing less than Johannesburg? It is not our responsibility to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. You'll be pleased to know that we'll move to another department now so that you can have a short break. Question number 477 has been asked by the Honorable Ntuli to the Minister of Public Service and Administration. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you once again, House Chair. And the answer to the question is that the department has issued a directive on developmental programs to guide national and provincial departments. And the directive recognizes the following programs. Firstly, the internship program, which facilitates practical workplace experience and is pivotal for professional accreditation. The graduate internship, which targets unemployed graduates requiring workplace acumen. The pre-service training for those pursuing higher education and needing workplace experience. The candidacy development program, which is geared towards a mandatory professional registration. The learnership program, which combines the theoretical and practical learning, culminating in qualification recognized by NQF. The apprenticeship program focused on training trade skills listed on the NQF program, as well as the graduate recruitment scheme aimed at cultivating talent through specialized training, potentially as part of the broader developmental efforts. And the last being the structured youth development program, which is targeting individuals having completed grade 9 to 12, designed to equip them with essential skills for career success. From the year 2018-19 financial year to 2022-23 financial year, a total of 122,398 young people participated in these programs. And as at the last financial year, 13,672 have been employed in the public service. The breakdown per province and per department is available for the honorable member, and I will share it with you. Thank you, honorable member.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Ntuli.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your detailed response. My follow-up question is, how will the popularization of the public service enhance the mobility of the youth to develop within the public service as part of developing Mandarins in our state? Thank you.
Did you get the question, Honorable Minister?
I think I did.
Okay.
Even though I was struggling, but I think I did. Because it's about professionalization of the public service to enhance mobility. Let me first indicate, Honorable House Chair, that the professionalization framework, in its design, it covers quite a number of areas that talk to the item professionalizing the public service. And the framework ensures access to quality career information so that the youth can easily access that information. But also, as the department, we've issued a directive on developmental programs, which I have just now shared with the House. And these are programs that seek to ensure that there's skill alignment and quality career services, and ensuring that we make the public service the employer of choice. It shouldn't be because I can't find a job elsewhere, then I will go to be a public servant. But also, we designed this program to ensure that we have our own internal capabilities and expertise as a public service. And therefore, young people are attracted in this out of the design of the program. And the MSG also is assisting us in ensuring the professionalization work moves on. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Gondwe. Before you ask a question, may I ask for that member on the platform to be disconnected as well, please? Please continue.
Honorable Minister, with regards to the pressing issue of youth unemployment, the 2019 National Elections Manifesto of the ruling party undertook to draw more young people into decent jobs in both the public and the private sector. But the harsh and stark reality, Honorable Minister, is that we're battling with a high public sector wage bill, and economic experts have recently warned that government is rapidly running out of money. Honorable Minister, how does your department intend to balance the competing issues of the high public sector wage bill and the cost-cutting measures that we need to implement as a country in order to rein in on our spending on one hand, and on the other hand, the pressing need to create and fund jobs for young people in the public sector? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. It is interesting that the ANC has even shaken the Democratic Alliance in reviewing its 2019 manifesto. With respect to the question, Honorable House Chair, earlier I had responded to a similar question, indicating that the issues of the wage bill, as well as cost-cutting measures, is matters that we sit down with the Department of Treasury and the mandating committee of government to look at what is available, where can we spend what, and on which programs that will ensure that that manifesto's mandate is realized. That's actually our primary responsibility and duty. And therefore, the question of young people, I've just shared with you the number of programs that we are driving. Within the cost-cutting measures, we still drive those programs. And young people are attracted to them. And I've given you just now the figures in terms of numbers, which prove the interest in the programs. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next supplementary question is to be asked by the Honorable Kumane.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, considering that the National Treasury now wants to place the moratorium on employment of new people in the public service, what effect will these budget cuts and other right-wing interventions in the economy have on the ability of the state to attract young and skillful people into the public service? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. And let me once again indicate that there would be no cost-cutting measures that would hamper the kinds of programs that are primary in our mandate. And youth employment is primary in our mandate. And therefore, wherever we have to compromise, if there has to be cost cutting, it would be on programs that are nice to have programs, because there would be programs that are a must have kind of programs. And youth development, youth employment are a must have kind of programs. Thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the ACDP is in agreement that youth unemployment has reached crisis proportions. And while we welcome initiatives taken to employ youth in the public service, government's role should be to create the environment for the private sector to flourish, for economic growth, and then to result in more youth employment. One of the most powerful initiatives to increase youth employment is the Youth Employment Tax Incentive, which reduces employers' pay-as-you-earn contribution. While one thus appreciates progress with youth employment in the public sector, does the Honourable Minister not agree that the private sector can create far more jobs than the public sector, and that the private sector should be encouraged to make better use of government initiatives, including the Youth Employment Tax Incentive to increase youth employment? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In as much as that would be a general political question, I think that with youth employment, it is the responsibility of all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean both public and private sectors. The Constitution of the Republic enjoins all of us to create this environment where each person becomes the best they can be. And in that is contained in its preamble. And therefore that Constitution is not for government, and it's not for private sector, it's for all of us. And therefore any program that seeks to promote personal growth should be supported by all, actually. And responsible business should also create this environment that ensures that youth or young people are employed. Here I've been accounting about that which, as the department that leads the public service, what it is that we are doing as that department to enhance the work that is done by all departments to attract young people into the workspace. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, we will now proceed to question number 480 that has been asked by the Honourable Piri to the Minister in the Presidency responsible for women, youth and persons with disabilities. The Honourable Minister is on the virtual platform. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for that question. The department obviously works with other departments who have the budget for assisting small and medium enterprises. We work, for instance, with the Department of Trade and Industry. Last year, up to June, the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition has provided women and youth-owned businesses with the funding to the value of 425 million. We also work with the Department of Small Business Development, which provided financial support to businesses owned by women, youth, and persons with disability to the value of 256 million. But also the provinces do provide funding to small and medium enterprises. Department of Agriculture does the same in the provinces. The department has also initiated a process to establish a cooperative bank to contribute to the financial inclusion of those who are excluded from the banking sector through access to low-cost credit for business owned by women, youth, and persons with disability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Piri.
Minister, yes, you have a budget, or a budget has been placed to support, but financing for small, medium, and micro enterprises is currently not effectively coordinated. Minister, the support in government is through silos. What intervention can enhance the coordination of state
DFIs to support SMMEs, particularly for the HDI and women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And I want to also acknowledge the House today, House Chair, that everybody's speaking about young people in terms of empowerment and small businesses. I want to applaud that. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. It is the money that is budgeted is spread across departments and also in the provinces. It's not in one pot and it's not in our department. But what we try and do is to work with other departments to see what they are doing to fund the SMEs, but also to direct people who come to us who are looking for assistance to the relevant departments. But I agree that it would have been better if maybe there was a central way of putting those budgets so that everyone knows that we can go to this department, whichever that department is, and all the money is there. But unfortunately, as things are, that's the way the budgeting is done, and it's not within our control. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Sharif.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. First, let me say it's good to see you, Minister. Please do attend committee meetings because we miss you. Let me make this clear and help with the confusion there in the ANC benches. As a DA, we will always hold you accountable for the empty promises that you make to those who are most vulnerable in South Africa. In your 2019 manifesto, it is noted that this government will ensure an increase of opportunities for SMMEs. Thank you, House Chair. Especially those that are owned by women, youth, and persons with disabilities. But we have seen none of this happen. This ANC government is full of empty promises and really has no plan to assist SMMEs. Can the minister please explain how the department's APP gives effect to the support of SMMEs, and how will the minister monitor this? I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Well, the budget for assisting SME for a start, we can
Honorable Minister.
And that's why I was quoting you some of the figures from the other departments.
Angazi ukuthi ubalekelwe igezi or njani uyahaga bese mhlambe na ungacima ivideo kuzoba ngcono.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay. No, I was saying that the budget for SMME support does not reside in our department. The honorable member knows that. And that is why I was quoting what other departments are doing, because we try and monitor that. That's why I was giving you the figures of what DTIC has spent on SMMEs, what the small business development has spent, because we don't have that budget. We only monitor what other departments do who have the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Sukers.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Minister. Minister, the department ended a workshop on gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and auditing in February, aimed to restructure the way government looks at financing the gender agenda and to ensure that public resources are allocated and spent in a way that advances gender equality and women's empowerment, saying, and I quote, open quote, in order to achieve this, engagements with relevant stakeholders is crucial to facilitate commitment towards ensuring the inclusion of men and women in the budgeting process, close quote. Have engagements with stakeholders been undertaken? And if so, what success did they have?
The Honorable the Minister.
Well, we also had a discussion because we are trying to ensure that there is a preferential procurement for women, youth, and persons with disability. We have engaged, for instance, Treasury so that in their procurement bill that they are going to be tabling, they do have that there will be a preferential procurement for those groups. And we hope that Parliament will then deal with that. And once that has happened, at least it will be legalized. Though even now, departments are supposed to have 40% put aside for women and 30% for youth. But because there is no legal obligation, we feel that it's better to ensure that there is a law that will ensure that everyone does that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mam Hlengwa available? Okay. I'm going to pass. Question 485, asked by the Honorable Pillay to the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for this opportunity once again. Yes, we do believe that the frontline monitoring program has made significant differences on the ground. The program monitors on average more than about 400 sites per year. And there are several practical examples, of course, that we will definitely give. And these examples have been submitted, of course, to Cabinet in May 2023 in the form of a report. Some of these examples were shared with the Portfolio Committee in various reports submitted by DPME and include the following. We've worked on monitoring the implementation of the ideal clinic realization model, and this has resulted in improvements noted of a large number of patients that are enrolled on the Central Chronic Medicine Dispensing Distribution Program for collection of medicines at different external pickup points. And we have seen this improvement also being on queue management and waiting times. Monitoring the implementation of sanitation appropriate for education program as well, we have done it, as overseen, of course, by the Department of Basic Education. We noted improvements on the sanitation since the implementation of the project, and when we raised this matter through a report that I've just said we did in Cabinet. And we've also seen that there is an improvement in access to basic services, including provision of water and electricity. We've also been able to see improvement at SASSA, and most especially on the rollout of commissioners of oaths in offices to enhance service delivery, thus reducing the pressure on police stations and having to have our clients or our communities go doing up and down between the department offices and the police station. As we repurpose our department, as I've already said, we'll continue to identify the priorities that will have a high impact, most especially on areas that we believe need these interventions more. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Minister, monitoring and evaluation is one of the key elements within your office. We also acknowledge the interventions and improvements. But how does the department monitor and ensure accountability of these interventions from frontline services oversight? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, once again. The Frontline Monitoring and Support Program facilitates, as I already said, the development of improvement plans which are monitored for implementation regularly. And as I've already said as well, we are introducing, and we have introduced already in other sectors, the digital way of making sure that we do monitor and evaluate most of this implementation processes and intervention that we have raised with different departments and provinces. Most of the time we do, of course, write directly to premiers or even to MECs and ministers to raise some of these issues before we even take them to cabinet. And we would then now be able to monitor the implementation process and performance of some of those institutions that we may have raised issues with from what we would have been able to collect as we do our frontline monitoring. Thank you once again.
Thank you. The Honorable Maklua.
House Chair, I will take Honorable Maglua's supplementary.
Proceed, Honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga, Sihlalo. Minister, the frontline monitoring work of the departments seems to do the evaluation parts of its mandates reasonably well, but then hits a brick wall when it comes to informing further planning, interventions, budget priorities across governments, because ideally there should be a two-pronged approach of both identifying shortcomings and addressing operational weaknesses, and then on the other hand, highlighting areas and practices of success and excellence. And by this government's own admission through its assessment reports, it is DA governments that lead the pack in implementation and innovation. If you just compare BRT rollouts in Cape Town and George on the one hand, and Johannesburg and Rustenburg on the other. So, Minister, what lessons and insights has the frontline monitoring unit identified from the top performing local and provincial governments that should be adopted by those who are lagging behind?
Thank you. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Indeed, there are a number of institutions and municipalities, cities in particular, all over the country that are actually leading as it relates to some of the interventions that we usually come up with as it relates to frontline monitoring. And some of them may include, of course, the city of Cape Town, but where we've seen the best practice as it relates to this particular way of doing things is in KZN, most municipalities in KZN. And we have seen this working best precisely because of how they are implementing what we would bring on board as it relates to integrated way of actually making sure that service delivery is done through DDMs. So we can then now be able to say this without fear of favor that where DDMs are working better and there's one plan and one implementation through DDMs and municipalities are highly involved, we definitely have seen that improvement have been able to be done. So that we can share, of course, a number of institutions that have done that, but as it relates to cities and municipalities, we can say that we have seen this happening more and better in KZN, most especially because DDMs are really, really doing well in those areas. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable Komani.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, much as you have partly outlined the examples and of the monitoring units, can you tell us, does your department have any power to enforce continual improvement interventions in the various government departments?
Okay. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, once again. No, we do not have enforcing powers, but we do have powers to actually monitor, evaluate, and also suggest through a report, not necessarily suggest, give a report on our own findings, which we will then now take them to institutions that need them. And at the same time, we are able to raise the matters in cabinet and also through the president himself. So at the moment, we don't have an act that gives us the powers to do that. But as I've already said, there is a legislation that we're already working on, a bill which will still have to go through processes of cabinet committees, then it will then now be able to be legislated accordingly. And I do believe that once we are able to do that, we'll definitely have powers that we need. But at the moment, the system that we are using is working precisely because we are able to get information that we need, and we have seen progress in most of the things that we have been able to raise. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. There was no request for the fourth supplementary question, which says, Honorable Minister, we have question 464 asked to the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation by Honorable Graham. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Once again, yes, the DPME is coordinating and coordinated and will continue to coordinating the signing of the performance agreement between the President and the ministers. In this regard, the President has signed performance agreement with different ministers, and this process have taken place between April and July. And before the agreements were signed, of course, there was a physical interview between the President and the ministers, which we facilitated as DPME, together, of course, with the Deputy President. As a result, as it relates to deputy ministers, the minister with whom the performance agreement is signed delegates some of those agreements between the President and themselves to their deputy ministers. As a result, then it means that whatever it is that would be done by the department, whether it is the delegated activities or performance to the deputy minister, will then now come together as a report to the Presidency, and that is facilitated by ourselves, of course. We've been able to put, of course, a system in place to improve on this performance monitoring and evaluation, as we have put a digital system that monitors this performance of ministers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable Graham.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, the ANC's 2019 election manifesto spoke in broad terms about strengthening governance in public institutions and undertook to, I quote, implement accountability and consequence management in pursuit of this objective. In 2020, performance agreements were signed with all ministers. These were valid for 1 year, ending in March 2021, and were made public as a means of accountability. In the words of President Ramaphosa, and I quote, "We see these performance agreements as the cornerstone of a new culture of transparency and accountability, where those who are given the responsibility to serve, whether as elected office bearers or public servants, do what is expected of them." And there it ended. There has been no evidence that since the signing of those agreements, actual assessments have been done, new agreements signed with new KPIs, and consequence management implemented where required. Nothing since 2020. Last week, Minister, you confirmed that the performance agreements for all ministers had been completed for this year. Curiously, there is no evidence anywhere of these agreements. No media statements, nothing on government websites, nothing even on Google. With one of the largest cabinets in the world, our government should be shooting the lights out. Instead, while the executive get rewarded for political patronage with high-paying jobs and no accountability, the bulk of our population faces poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Minister, we've been led to believe that the performance management of ministers has been consistently implemented since 2020. And yet the 2023-24 annual performance plan of your department reflects that analysis reports on the performance of ministers is a new, unmeasured indicator for every year since 2019. This would indicate that no actual performance assessments have been done, ever. Could you please confirm how many actual performance assessments have been done on ministers since 2019? I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I would definitely not agree that there is no sense of accountability by ministers. The fact that I'm here means that I'm accountable to Parliament, but maybe because we're only talking about the performance agreement between the President and his ministers, then that could be something else, but it would be wrong for us to come here and say that there is no sense of accountability in any way. As far as we are concerned and as far as we know, assessment has been done. And as this assessment for the previous year has been done also by, at least I was there, between April and July. And that assessment is already done. And we are going to continue to do assessment again for the coming 6 months period, because the President have realized that how we have been doing assessment, doing them once a year, is not necessarily working. So we've decided to do it at least twice a year. What we will improve on, but which is not a decision that I can take, we will take it back to the President again, is to at least be able to communicate on the assessment that we have done, so that then the public would then now be able to know exactly what is it that have been agreed upon and how far we are. But assessment is being done, and performance becomes important, improves precisely because the assessment between the President and the ministers has been done. So I can safely say that between the period of 2022 and this year, assessment has been done, and as I've already said, I've just reported on it. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Piri.
Thank you, Chairperson. As the DA is idling to get into government and become ministers, they must start assessing their shadow ministers because they've got shadows. Chairperson, let me proceed with my question. As you are shadowing, can I be protected as you shadow yourself? I'm drowned, the speaker. They are drowning me.
Unfortunately, you're pointing the wrong finger. Just proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your response. You know, it's thorough. As the ANC, of course, we've got resolutions. And those resolutions are implementable, and we are implementing them. Minister, can you elaborate further and tell South Africans, in particular the DA, what interventions can yourself highlight them, Minister, and shine because you are doing them, which is a product of the assessment of your ministers and deputy ministers in terms of enhancing their performance? Can you highlight and shine?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Through the interventions that we have made because of the performance agreement between the President and the ministers, we have been able to, of course, see a number of improvement in a number of departments, and can just give an example. One, as it relates to South African Police, we have then now been able to see an increase in the budget given to the CPFs, precisely because of the process of the performance agreement that we had, or that the President had with the minister, because when they were doing their own interviews, the minister would come and say, this is what I'm going to do. Then the President would say, but this is what I expect, and these are the priorities that I believe needs to be put forward. And that agreement would then now be able to be put in such a way that when we evaluate and monitor what the President have agreed with their ministers is actually what is being seen on the ground. As a result, I've already said we have seen the increase in the budget. We have also seen SAP, South African Police, also putting in place a budget and further making sure that the budget to deal with visible policing is actually increased. That has already happened. We've also seen, as it relates to CETA, because many of the ministers that the President sat with to discuss their performance have raised the issue of CETA being problematic, and we have then now been able to put measures in place to say that where there is a challenge with CETA, what is it that can be put in place for the department to be able to put implement other ICT measures to be able to do their own work. And we have seen an improvement because in some departments that has already happened. So there's a number of examples that I can give. However, because of time, let me just end it up to there. Thank you very much.
And you are very prompt with your time. Thank you very much for that. The Honorable Mandlinkosi.
I will take this one, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Shkwambani. You may proceed.
Minister, in your assessment, if we have conducted any, like we have indicated, what was the performance of, performance appraisal of Mr. Pravin Kotak, who preside over state-owned companies that are failing like a house of dominoes in the country? If he is considered still a valuable and a capable member of cabinet, despite all these glaring failures in his ministry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
I do believe that the president is the only one that can be able to give a clear answer to what has been asked. However, it cannot be correct to say that our SOEs have failed dismally. Yes, there are failures and there are areas of improvement. However, there are also areas where we have done very well, most especially also in the international sphere. And there are improvements, of course, that still need to be done, as I've already said. However, as it relates to that, my answer would then now be able to say that there is no legal obligation, of course, for the president to have performance agreement. However, the president is doing it precisely because we want to make sure that accountability of performance of ministers does become something that we enter into, because we want to see improvement in whatever it is that our different departments are actually doing. So that's what I can say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There was no request for the last supplementary. As we move to question 468, asked by the Honorable Komani to the Minister of Public Service and Administration. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Honorable Minister, wait, there is a Deputy Minister whose mic is on. Please mute. We can't identify who you are, lucky you. Please mute. Proceed, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. There has been a delay in rolling out the integrated financial management system, the IFMS. And as such, even though the PMDS, which is the Performance Management Development System, is one of the business processes within the scope of human resource management module of the IFMS. The IFMS program is sponsored and led by National Treasury and supported by the Department of Public Service and Administration, the State Information Technology Agency, that is SITA, and the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, DCDT. The DPSA is responsible for ensuring that the HRM module is designed and implemented, including the digitization of the performance management development system function of that HRM function. For all the public service departments, National Treasury has now purchased the software on behalf of the public service for the IFMS. The PMDS application is included in the IFMS software bill, the bill of materials, and will be implemented in the national and provincial departments and government components as part of IFMS implementation plan. And the second question, to develop an effective digital PMDS, the DPSA has engaged in benchmarking studies with various governmental departments and provinces that have successfully executed electronic systems. Anticipating future developments, the DPSA may expand this benchmarking to include parastatals. It is pertinent to mention that the Oracle software obtained for the IFMS is equipped with applications tailored for business processes such as PMDS, and these applications are considered the industry best practices. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. Mekomani.
Thank you very much once more, House Chair. Minister, the public servants are still using manual application for leave forms, performance assessments, and salary slips, even though we claim to be living in the fourth industrial revolution. How best can your department digitize some administration functions from paper to online applications? Are you planning on getting rid of the Z83 application form anytime soon? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
That's a number of questions, but let me try. The question of the manual leave forms, in the absence of a digital system, you can't say you throw away what you should be using and utilizing. And I have indicated the challenges that were there, which are now being addressed in terms of the system that is now going to be rolled out to address the digitization. And therefore, indeed, we do live in the era of the 4IR, as the honorable members is now addressing the House from home. Thank you, honorable member.
Thank you. And let me just say that you don't have to answer all the other questions because the rules of the House protect you. We have Rule 1427 that says you only ask one supplementary question, so you are not bound. The Honorable Ntuli will be asked the next follow-up question.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, my supplementary question is, what is the progress of e-government interventions across government, and what challenges is the department facing? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, and thank you, Honorable Member. The challenges that the department has been faced with is the absence of a generic system, which I have earlier responded to indicate that now it has been purchased, and we are now designing the various programs that would fit into that. And therefore, soon, it will be a thing of the past to be saying we are struggling with respect to digitization. I thank you, Honorable House.
Thank you. Dr. Schreiber.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the truth is that technology cannot solve for a lack of political will. And in fact, in its 2019 manifesto, the ANC already promised to implement accountability and consequence management. Chair, it has failed.
The minister should be able to hear what he's saying, please.
Chair, it has failed dismally to live up to this promise, not because of technology, but because of a lack of political will. More than 25% out of the 9,000 senior government managers do not have the qualifications required for the positions they hold. Last year, taxpayers forked out over 130 million rand to pay the salaries of officials sitting at home on suspension. Honorable Minister, given these failures and broken promises, why should anyone believe your new promises that there will now suddenly be an improvement in performance management as long as the ANC is in office? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
It is a pity, Honorable House Chair, thank you very much. It is a pity that we still have amongst us people who see others as being incapable because they don't look the same. Let me indicate that the 25%, that the honorable member is referring to, he knows that it is not true that 25% of civil servants have no qualifications. That you know is not true. But even if that was, again, going back to my earlier point on constitution, this government, this department is hard at work ensuring that the National School of Government helps and capacitates those without capacity, because ours is not to destroy people, it is to build people. And therefore, to come up and say that the 25%, what do you expect the 25% to be done? Should be, where should they be thrown? If, let us say, they didn't have the qualification. And I'm therefore indicating to you that as a responsible government, we capacitate those who lack capacity. They will continue to be employed because they were employed correctly. Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you. Other honorable members, there's no request for the fourth supplementary question. As such, we move to question Honorable van der Walt, asseblief. We move to question 479, asked to the Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. The Honorable the Minister. By Honorable Marekwa, sorry.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Let me start by saying, yes, we have made progress. In collaboration with the South African National Defence Force, we've developed a concept paper for the South African Defence Force-led National Service to provide skills targeting women, youth, and persons with disability. And also, the program will build character and also leadership skills. We are now, together with the South African National Defence Force and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, developing an implementation plan and costing the various streams and phases of implementation. Also led by the National Defence Force, who are also in discussion with the following sector training and education authorities, SETAs, to collaborate with us in this project. We are discussing with the Manufacturing, Engineering and Related Services Sector Education and Training Authority, the MERSETA, Agriculture Sector Education and Training Authority, AgriSETA, Transport Education Training and Authority, TETA-SETA, the Energy and Water Sector Education and Training Authority, EWESETA. So that's the progress we've made. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Marekwa.
Thank you, Minister, for the response to the question, and we appreciate the collaboration that you have with the SA National Defence Force. But maybe in elaborating further on the question is that what are the critical skills or qualities that the youth, women and persons with disability are going to gain from this collaboration? Can we get that? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, yes, proceed.
Thank you very much for the follow-up question. What we have decided is that we are going to, working with industry, train the young people, women and persons with disability skills that are needed by industry so that we don't train them and then tomorrow they are unemployed. So we've identifying those together with industry. Amongst them, it would be maritime skills, it would be ICT skills and many other skills, but they are being identified together with industry so that as they train and finish training, they can either get a job or create jobs.
Thokoze. The Honorable Opperman.
Minister, since I've been in this portfolio committee of women, youth and persons with disabilities, you have yet to attend a meeting. You don't show up to Parliament to vote and you are absent in portfolio committees and shows no appetite for the issues facing women, youth and persons with disabilities. Can you tell us how many women, youth and persons with disabilities will be targeted through this SANDF-led skills implementation plan? And how many people will be capacitated? And how will the process of recruitment and implementation unfold? Thank you.
Honorable member, you are aware that you asked 3 questions. Minister, you have a right to respond to 1 question. The rules protect you. Proceed.
Thank you very much. Let me just first say, if the member doesn't attend portfolio committees, I have attended portfolio committees, so she mustn't come here and talk nonsense. The women, youth and persons with disability that will be trained will be initially, we are having 4 phases of this project. There'll be a pilot phase, there'll be a second phase, which will be an intermediate phase, and an acceleration phase, and a sustainable phase. And then the Defence Force, together with us and industry, will determine how many will be trained per phase. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Hendricks, I know you are coming in for the next follow-up question, but when you come in, please mute until we ask you to speak, because you were disturbing the minister as he was responding. Proceed, Honorable Hendricks. It's your time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My fingers are not as fast as your fingers, so my apologies for being proactive. Thank you, Minister, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, can the next generation skills like robotics, artificial intelligence, the revolutionary innovations that nanotechnology can unleash be the focus in a national service program for youth who are unable to go to institutes of learning, for abused women, and also for blind people who are using guide dogs? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Yes, those skills that the industry needs now in the future will be part of the training. But I agree with him, with the Honorable Hendricks, that persons with disability and others should also be included in these skills for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am Sonti.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I will take on behalf of Ms. Sonti. Minister, you are maybe aware of a recent case of a woman in the Eastern Cape who killed the 3 children and herself this week as a result of poverty and inability to provide a livelihood for her family. This follows a similar case in the Eastern Cape a month ago. Has your department conducted any assessment of the extent to rural women poverty in this country? If not, why not? And what sort of intervention are you planning to roll out, targeting specifically rural women who are living under the grinding stone of poverty? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
I think This question deserves to be asked as a question on its own, not as a supplementary question. But let me say that, first of all, yes, we are aware that there is poverty in the rural areas, especially. And that's why we have said, even though we don't have a budget, because as you know, we don't have a budget to implement, but we are going to take a step change and try and partner with, even if we partner with business, with provinces. For instance, last week, we were in KZN together with the MEC for agriculture, because we have decided that in the rural areas, we must have a integrated farming, because people must use what they have, the land they have. Last week, we were at Msinga with the provincial MEC for agriculture, where they are supporting women, especially women. It was co-ops who are growing food, and they were connecting with markets. We had to harvest some of their products, take them to SPAR, to connect them with the markets, to try and deal with this kind of poverty. So that program is also going to be rolled out. And there is also support for livestock. So we are aware of this poverty. We are trying to do our best without the budget, but working with other people who can support us. We are linking up with the
Thank you,
South
your
Korean.
time.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question, I hope Honorable Minister of Public Service and Administration, the question 447 is standing over because of the absence of yeah. So we are now proceeding again to you, Honorable Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Is question 478 by the Honorable Masonto.
Thank you very much for that question. The Constitution places the responsibility to promote the respect, development, use, and recognition of South African Sign Language on Pan-South African Language Board, the PANSAL. So following the legalization of the sign language as an official language, 12th official language, a task team has been established comprising of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability, the Pan-South African Language Board, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, the Department of Higher Education, and associations representing members of the deaf community. This task team is developing a plan of action on mainstreaming South African Sign Language across all the government and society in general. Further, the PANSAL is rolling out training on the South African Sign Language Charter for provincial and national civil servants in all provinces, starting now in September. During the Deaf Awareness Month, this is tied with the commemoration of the International Day of Sign Language on the 23rd of September as declared by the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Sonto.
Thank you, House Chair. The follow-up question, Mr. Minister. what resource allocation is required to mainstream sign language in public and private sector spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
That has not, I haven't really got the
Mama
costing because
Sonto?
that,
Oh, I thought you didn't hear her well.
no,
you
I
like-
did.
Oh, okay, proceed, ma.
Can you
Sorry.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying that the PENSA is the one that is doing the rollout. They will be the one that will have the and would cost how much it's going to cost them to roll out. Thank you.
Thank you. We proceed. We don't have Mam Tlangwa. Mam Kaula?
Ngibonge Chair. Minister, ngifuna ukwazi usilalelane kahle. Emakhaya, ey'ndaweni zasemakhaya, kunabantu abaningi otholayo ukuthi abakwazi ukukhuluma, abakwazi futhi nokuzwa. Ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi yinini lapho esiyokubona khona wenza izikole, uqasha othisha abazokwazi ukubafundisa ukukhuluma ngama-sign language njengasemadolobheni. Ngoba isikhathi esiningi emadolobheni izinto ziyenzeka kodwa abantu basemakhaya abanakiwe. Yilana engizocela khona ukwazi ukuthi kanti bona labantu abasemakhaya yini benganako uma bekhubazekile ngoba nabo bayafuna bafundise ukuze bakwazi ukuqashwa njengoba sibabona bekhona la eParliament nabo bahole bengaphili ngemali ye-disability grant. Ngicela impendulo eqondile ngesizulu kahle ngokuzwa abantu emakhaya.
Siyathokoza Mam Khawula, isikhathi sakho siphelile. Mam Khawula. Mam Khawula, isikhathi sakho siphelile nangazi ukuthi uMinister we-Women uyawachasha ubuthishere na. Mam Dlamini, proceed and try to respond. Thank you.
Yebo, ngiyakuzwa mamkhawula. Kodwa sengathi ungqongqoze emnyangweni ongewona. Izikole azakhiwa ilo mnyango. Kodwa zikhona izikole zikahulumeni nasemakhaya. Mhlambe ke hayi wonke. Kodwa zikhona izikole zabantu abakhubazekile ezikhona nasemakhaya. Kodwa ngeke ngikwazi ukuzibala zonke ngoba angizazi zonke. Ezisazokwakhiwa uMinister waka-Basic Education uyena ozokwazi ukuthi sizokwakha lezi nalezi endaweni ethize. Umbuzo omuhle wona lo kodwa sengathi kufuneka ubuzwe la uzokwazi ukuthi uphenduleke kahle khona emnyangweni wezemfundo. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga. Mam Khawula, uzaba nengxoxo noMinister Dlamini Zuma ngaphandle. Umvale endleleni akutshele ukuthi wenzeni. Honorable Sharif.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, before you speak about people speaking nonsense, I would urge you to do some self-reflection. Minister, this department is yet to have formulated any legislation towards persons with disabilities. The white paper on disabilities has been collecting dust. The ANC government once again pulled the wool over the eyes of so many people with disabilities when it promised to finalize legislation that deals with disabilities in 2019, and we are yet to see anything come to this House. Can the Minister explain how far the legislation affecting persons with disabilities is and what the status thereof? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister.
Yes, I hear that the bill will come to Parliament on disability. it was being discussed with the Law Reform Commission. It's going to come to Parliament.
Thank you. The next question is 462, still to the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities in the Presidency. 462, asked by the Honorable Sharif. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for that question. Let me first explain that the budget for the sanitary dignitary program is dispersed directly to the provinces by the National Treasury. And provinces that run their procurement processes independently, and they appoint the service providers to deliver sanitary pads. As the department, we have no control over how the budget that has been sent directly to the provinces is used and how their procurement processes are run. In trying to monitor the program, the department convenes quarterly sanitary dignitary national task teams meetings with representatives from all provinces to get an update on progress in the implementation of the program. And that's what we do, but we cannot tell them how to procure, when to procure, because that budget is theirs, given to them directly by Treasury. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Sharif.
House Chair, the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities went to an oversight in Mpumalanga, and what we found there was shocking. The lack of process, frameworks and coordination from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities and the province on the procurement and distribution of sanitary products is indicative to the failure of a government that doesn't care. The fact that the PC learned that the distribution of sanitary products in Mpumalanga was not SANS approved and caused rashes for some of those learners who use them is unacceptable. Minister, what have you done to ensure that those who signed off on those products that were not SANS approved and put young girls' health at risk is held accountable? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
It's very clear that the honorable member doesn't understand how government works. I have no power to go into, we discuss with the province, but I have no power to go and punish someone in the province who's employed by a province. This discussion has happened also in the portfolio committee. I was in that portfolio committee when the members came with the report from Mpumalanga. We can advise, we can advocate, but we cannot force a province to punish someone because we just don't have that power. If we had it, we would exercise it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am Koma.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, ziningi inkulumo la ngaphandle ezithi ama-sanitary towels mele abe accessible njengama condoms. But the observation is that anqabile. So bengithanda ukuzwa umbono kaMinister ngale issue. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Awuyabona-ke lapho ngivumelana nawe ukuba kuyangathi ngabe vele atholakala yonke indawo njengama-condom. Kodwa-ke okwamanje imali yawo iya kuma-province ukuthi ayothengwa khona. Kodwa ngokomthetho ngempela asizameni ukuthi abe khona ngoba sanitary pads is not a nice to have. It's something that you must have. You can't avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you. Agbare lid Breed.
Dankie, huisvoorsitter. Honourable Minister, the Sanitary Dignity Project has been chaotic at best. In the past, provinces have gone unscathed with no real consequences for not implementing this program. I wanted to ask, what measures will you implement to ensure provinces are compelled to implement this program? But I will not. So I will ask you, are you telling us that these funds can go squandered by provinces with no actual consequences and no real oversight by your department or by Parliament? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
I've not said that. I've not said that, Honorable Member. First, Treasury that sends funds to the province monitors transactions in the provinces. Secondly, the Auditor General monitors how funds are utilized by all of us, not just the provinces, by all departments. So I haven't said that funds must be squandered. All I've said is that I have no power to dictate to the province when the funds have been given directly to the province. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the next question. Order, honorable members. The next question is asked to the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation by the Honorable Yabo. The Minister. 483.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, for this opportunity once again. South Africa's membership of BRICS aims to deliver on the country's national interest and foreign policy priorities in line with the NDP and Priority 7 of the medium-term strategic framework of 2019 to 2024. South Africa emphasizes concrete cooperation that contribute both directly and indirectly to the priorities of a better South Africa, a better Africa, and therefore a better world through its partnership in the BRICS. No specific BRICS cooperation agreement was signed during this particular BRICS summit held in Johannesburg from the 22nd to the 24th of August 2023. However, a number of agreements were signed during meetings on the margins of the BRICS summit, including the BRICS Manufacturing Forum held on the 21st of August 2023 and the state visit of China on the 22nd of August 2023 as well. Commitments were also made by BRICS leaders in the Johannesburg Declaration adopted following the BRICS summit. Agreements signed and commitments made are monitored through the quarterly and annual monitoring of delivery agreements and the performance agreement signed by the President with relevant ministers. Of course, this has to be done precisely because at the end of the day, when we also report on the platform of BRICS, we would like to then now be able to look at what we have done. So this is actually what is going to happen, and it will start soon precisely because the summit just happened last month. But we will definitely report to the House when a call is made to say, in terms of the declaration that has been made and the other agreements that have been signed in the sidelines, most especially done by ministers, we will definitely be able to give that report when it is ready and you request us to do so. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. In the absence of the Honorable Yabo, Khoshiraji Mutapo will take charge of the question.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, colleagues. Honorable Minister, what opportunities will the BRICS Plus expansion create for our country? And can the Honorable Minister kindly highlight key areas of cooperation from the recent summit? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Indeed, the key priorities that are going to be seen because of this expansion will firstly speak to the issue of expanding our own mission as it relates to our influence globally. Because once you have all these other countries that have come on board, you are able to broaden the influence that you have even in other multilateral institutions. But most of all, equally so, we would be having influence in countries such as Egypt, especially when we're here in Africa. Because whatever it is that we will be agreeing upon in BRICS, we would then now be able to see it happening as well in other multilateral, as I've already said. But equally so, we are saying that there is also an opportunity to grow a stronger coalition of developing nations, of course, who can better put the interest of the global south on the world's agenda. That's what we believe would definitely assist us to be able to have a greater voice and a bigger voice as it relates to some of these issues. In terms of the key areas of cooperation from the recent summit, the 15th BRICS Summit has successfully adopted the Johannesburg Declaration, a document that encapsulated significant BRICS viewpoints on matters of global economic, financial, and political significance. This is as a bloc building upon the 15 years of the BRICS summits that have taken place, and it further committed to strengthening the framework of mutually beneficial BRICS cooperation under the 3 pillars of political, security, economic, and finance, as well as cultural people-to-people cooperation. And I think we've already been able to see this, especially when it comes to people-to-people cooperation through education and health as well. And in terms of finance, we've also been able to see what has happened and some of the new suggestions that are coming on board as it relates to the BRICS Bank. The bloc has also committed to enhance its strategic partnership for the benefit of its people through the promotion of peace, a more representative, fairer international order, a reinvigorated and reformed multilateral system, sustainable development, and definitely inclusive growth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Metro. Okay, Honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Minister, the BRICS and other similar multilateral organizations can obviously be valuable opportunities to promote trade and investments and to cultivate links for peer learning and exchange. But they also present risks by increasing the number of issues where we as South Africa can find ourselves with the conflicts between the government's international friends on the one hand and our domestic priorities and values and agendas on the other. For example, the government stance on the Ukraine invasion and the Lady R scandal, which was seemingly based on the motto, "To Russia with love," and our many unfortunate voting choices at the UN Human Rights Council are examples of this. So can the minister please confirm that wherever and whenever the government has to make a choice between BRICS obligations and the NDP, which your department is the custodian of monitoring and driving, our country and its development agenda will always come first?
The Honorable the Minister.
First of all, I do not think that there was anything wrong with the stance that South Africa has taken in making sure that we push forward the progressive and interactive peace order in Ukraine or between Ukraine and Russia. We did very well, and what we did has been applauded by many people, including the UN Secretary General. However, as it relates to what you have asked, our country is very clear. And I think all the other BRICS countries are very clear on national interest. Our national interest is actually the very reason that we are in the BRICS. As a result, us being in the BRICS is to ensure that our national interest is being forwarded and is being enhanced through those multilateral sectors. So there's absolutely no way that there would be any opportunity where South Africa would then now find itself putting the interest of our own country second in any way. And we see us being in the BRICS definitely being, as I've already said, an opportunity to enhance some of the things that we want to do. And this include amongst the most issues of bilateral nature, as well as ensuring that where we want to see a difference, including the issues of security, UN Security Council, will definitely be knowing that our allies in the BRICS will definitely be able to assist us and agree with us to push forward what we know is the interest of our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no requests, or there were no requests for follow-up question 3 and 4. And honorable members, the time for the first time, the time allocated for questions has not expired. And for the first time, there won't be any outstanding replies that will be printed on Hansard. And I want to thank all the members of the executive that made this process a success today. Having said that, I order all the members to stand and wait for the chair and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.
DA must relax.